Okay, today's Monday, May 11th. This is the policy meeting. In attendance is Mrs. Bites, Mr. Speed, Mr. Kurtz, Mr. Wolf from the administration, Mary Beth Torja, and from the member of the public is Miss Laura Rena. Okay, so today we would like to, just as a quick overview, I would like to touch on the fundraising policies at the request of Mrs. Bites, and I'll turn this over to her in a moment. And then I would like to get into the use of facilities that we left off of from last meeting. So, Mrs. Bites, when we start with fundraising, since this was your request.
Sure. And Mrs. Reno, you're here as sports boosters?
Yeah, and I can do Blazer Foundation, the two.
And Blazer. So have you had a chance to review the present policy by any chance?
I do, and my impression is it doesn't apply to any of the outside organizations. That it's all about what students are selling and what students are doing as far as fundraising. Because, like number 5, that all the funds from the activities will be deposited into the student activity account. Well, when Boosters or Blazer Foundation does something, it goes into their accounts, not into the student activity account.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't apply to your
it seems like
two organizations, you're saying?
Right.
So
This would, I think, from the clubs, it might be the clubs. It's the student council.
Like the clubs is what this applies to.
Student council. It applies to
the different grades.
Okay. So how about like page 3? I see that there was some sort of addition at some point in time for specifically SRCOs, which is how we are referring to these groups, right? And this is good to have a discussion on the vocabulary, so to speak, I think. So wouldn't, it specifically says that page 3 is related, applies to sports boosters, music boosters, parent-teacher councils, where I agree, none of this should be Blazer. Foundation should have its own set of, if you look at other people's policies, the Education Foundation sort of has its own set of rules. But, now, in
Carol,
looking at 219, page 3, I think you're saying we have to modify this to make it fit then the things that you are doing. Is that a safe assumption?
I mean, this one is much more broad than, page 3 is much more broad than page 1 and 2. So,
now,
I mean, it fits.
Do we,
Do you like it?
the only way it gets on...
There's nothing there.
Sir, are you here for the policy meeting? Would you like to come up here and...
Join us?
Mrs. Labrino is a member of the public also. You don't have to sit way back there.
Please feel free if you'd like to join the dialogue.
Before anyone gets on the agenda, this form must be received by the district office.
Yes.
And then I assume that it's been first approved by the building principal?
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm wondering how much of the policy is because the policy is not good, which it isn't, obviously, it's not specific enough. But it's also not enforced, I don't think, because the activities form is supposed to be copied to the board, treasurer, and both treasurers, both last two treasurers and they have never gotten a copy of this. So I don't know, are we using this at all?
Yes.
Do they
We
complete
filled
this
this out.
Yes.
We have filled this
You
form
do?
out.
Yes.
So these are on record somewhere?
Yes.
Yes.
We're just not getting copied on it.
And probably more so because as the secretary to the board changed, they were just, it was continual rollover of what was, past practice. So if this was,
I'm okay with that.
yeah.
If we could
But
just
this,
get the treasurer in the loop so that we can, it's actually the treasurer, right?
via the superintendent.
Right.
So I check every single one of them to make sure that they're meeting the criteria. If I see that the principal has had no questions or concerns about it, I usually typically okay it. But even then, if I see something that is a flag to me, then I get in touch with the principal and I say, hey, we talked about this. This one I'm not going to approve. There's a lot of times where I will say denied based upon the fact that they want to use the school day.
Right.
To raise funds, and we've been flagging those things. Yes.
And I've looked at so many now, I gotta come back.
Now, when it was like the Relay for Life team, the little girls at the middle school who were trying to raise money for their grandmother who passed away, and they wanted to be able to, for $1, you could listen to your iPad or your phone, you could listen to the music. We allowed that because it was done during non-instructional time, and it was a once and done kind of thing. But we're really trying to stay away from the kids being able to sell food, you know, like at the homeroom time, things like that. If it's before school really starts and kids are coming in early, which they do off the bus, then we certainly allow them for that time. But once the bell rings for school to be starting, and once the bell, you know, is over at the end of the day, then we're okay as well. That it's not interfering with instructional time.
So those are my concerns, that the proper forms are being submitted and that the policy is being followed in as much as we have to revise it now. And the inherent nature of children to be exploited in the fundraising process.
I can only say that the clubs and activities are in dire need of funds to support their initiatives, whether it's the cheerleading group who need multiple uniforms that aren't covered through, and they do a lot of their own fundraising separate from from boosters. So, you know, in order,
that's what we're looking for, though, like the cohesion, so that funds are raised and as a whole, and the groups that need the new uniforms. I understand lacrosse, whatever, hasn't had uniforms in 10 years. Is that an exaggeration?
yeah,
But
it's a club sport. They're not part of our.
Here's the problem.
That reminds me.
When the district decided
guess I
that
didn't
all
know.
the individual team boosters, and that's the problem, they keep using the word booster because they're sports boosters. And then there's the football team, the soccer team, the golf team, every single
They all have
varsity
their
sport.
own.
They have their own
They have their
boosters.
own. And the district used to have those funds in their student activity fee. And the district said we shouldn't have that money. So they turned all of those individual teams over to sports boosters.
Right.
We keep their money for them, but we don't control their money. We may have football's money, but it's football's money, not sports boosters'
So
money.
you keep a separate account for
Yeah.
you just do the accounting.
So we
for
just
them.
keep track of it for them, so that there's not 27 different
Sure.
checkbook accounts, like trying to keep
Right.
track
That
of
makes
every
sense.
last bit of it. So
Not the way we want it.
here's
Well,
You like that?
It-
No,
it's-
yeah.
it's
okay.
ridiculous.
Okay, all right, let's talk.
Well,
about
here
it.
is
it's ridiculous.
if you go back, well, the problem was, you know, from the board side was the district employees were being involved in the accounting part. Okay, depositing and withdrawing.
Oh, really?
Okay, so the decision of the board was to extract ourselves and the liability from being involved in all the cash transactions.
The person in charge of that was the athletic secretary. Because she knew what was coming in and going out, there was a Title IX kind of checks and balances. The athletic department knew what was going on. Now, that money's not going through the athletic department.
So you don't have to worry about Title IX.
Yes,
Well,
you do.
you do, but
You still do as a
tried
district,
to separate
but you don't
them.
have any way of knowing what football is spending versus
Oh, yes, we do.
cheerleading. Now you do,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we now give you, starting in the
Hopefully,
fall, the
right.
budget.
right.
Right.
But for the
New
last,
booster policy will be
you don't have.
Yeah, we
so-
tried to close that loop.
So you
and
had
that's,
to have that balance. If you had somebody in the district aware of what athletics was spending on the individual teams and what the individual teams was spending, but now you didn't want to pay that person to be doing it anymore. So now you don't
Now I
have that
understand.
information.
Thank you for that background.
yeah, so that's
didn't see
that's
any
the
of that codified.
that's the tie-in. That's why we created the policy as we did for the booster fundraising
Trying to
act.
clean up those
Right, so it
loose
kind of
ends.
filled that loophole.
But then, like, I look at this and I think, okay, so let's say the golf team decides to have a golf outing. Are they a student activity that falls under this policy? Or because they're now, sports boosters holds their money, are they now an outside booster organization? The students are running that activity, not sports boosters. So which one do they fall under?
But if it's just them, right?
If it's just the golf team, who are they?
Okay.
I agree. Now, some of the language I saw in combing through some of these different policies was they refer to teams, rules for teams and rules for boosters. A team can can have its own fundraisers, 2 per season, and that's it. That's all a team can officially have. No one day, blah, 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 versus the mother groups, the sports booster group, or I guess everybody would be part of the sports booster group. And as a team, there are certain rules that apply to teams. The language changes. The teams aren't called boosters.
And we're not seeing we're not seeing that they're exceeding those as a team. For instance, I believe.
Well, I don't think there's anything in yet.
I think most of them do like a camp or a clinic,
right?
And then they might have a traditional.
They're already meeting like their 2 big ones that they do because they don't try to inundate people.
I also saw that those teams have priority over the approvals in fundraising during season. The teams that are in season have. I'm just saying, it's just language that is out there.
Yeah, it's not.
I thought that was use of facilities.
Approvals. It was in. I've been all over the place. I'm just jumping all around to try and justify having language. Do we need a team reference to team under fundraising and SRCOs and wipe out the whole term booster?
Because if you're going to say
can we not
that the teams are students, then that money goes into a student activity fund, but it doesn't go into the district student activity fund. So there's.
It would go into a team fund, though.
Yes,
right?
under
Managed
sports
by-
booster, since we now
Okay,
hold
so
the money.
there wouldn't be a team account on our end?
Nope.
There's no accounts, team accounts?
To my knowledge,
So that would mean that all of the.
Yeah.
What are you recommending we change? We bring it in house?
I'm not sure. I'm just
Okay,
I'm
just trying to get
thinking, if the
information.
existing mechanism is there to easily do it, then I wouldn't be suggesting that. But I thought, I don't know if that would work then. If the team raises money, if they're guaranteed, if they're allowed to have 2 fundraisers per year, who does that? And we distinguish them from the language of sports business used to bring the parent teacher. Who physically handles the money? It's still a question there. We're saying we don't want the teams to have their own accounts and
Well, they can have their own accounts underneath the umbrella of the sports boosters or underneath the umbrella of the music
that's true.
boosters.
Because there are teams. We have. Cheerleading has their own. Softball has their own. And
Yeah.
then the other teams, boosters, oversees it for them because they may not have as involved parents, or it might be like the golf team with 6 people on it. Or swimming, which spends $50 a year, So for them to have their own entire booster organization doesn't make sense.
right.
But the other ones that have the stronger parent involvement or are just larger, they have their own.
The object of that is that the team only makes minor purchases, just little purchases. They don't make the big purchases. All the big purchases for equipment or uniforms have to go through the mother group, and therefore done and
Well, they just have to
basis.
they just have to submit their budget to the board, regardless of. That has really nothing to do with the sports boosters per se, but what Mrs. Reno is saying is from the softball, they're going to generate a budget which includes fundraisers, what have you, and they're going to submit all that. This is what we plan on spending on this sport, this activity.
About getting away from Mrs. Reno's proposal was that we shouldn't have so many booster groups.
But that's what we
So,
have.
right. That's what I was just trying to entertain suggestions for how it would be handled if we didn't have.
my concern would be that if we would change it now, does another board come in and change it again? I think we want to somehow create some kind of consistency
Yeah, we
with
want a
it.
good policy. I think that's why we
See,
have
I'll speak from the music side. There's one music booster organization, and underneath them they have concert choir, the marching band, indoor percussion, indoor color guard.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they all do fundraisers.
and they all do fundraisers.
But they're
Okay.
not called. We're not going to require them by the new policy to each be their own 501c4.
No, they fall under the music.
No,
boosters
they
for
fall
that
under the
side.
music.
Reporting to us is done through the mother group. I guess that's what I'm suggesting.
Right.
I'm proposing.
Now, for
the same thing.
the band side, there's no Title IX implications. Okay. But each student, you can go on the website, and if you know your child's what's the number they enter for the lunch account?
Their ID number.
Their ID
Right,
number.
PIN number,
You can see what they go down the list, see what their ID number, and see how much money they have in their account at any time. And when it's just like this, they know. All right, if you're going to Joe Corby's Pizza, for every pizza that you sell for $5, you get $2 of it. The boosters get $1, what have
So
you.
why wouldn't that model work with the sports program, and why shouldn't we
Because
replicate
you-
that same model?
Because how do you have individual students having accounts? So you do, we couldn't just say, okay, Carol Bites, you sold Joe Corby's pizza during girls' soccer season. So you have this money in your account, but you raised it for the soccer program. But let's say you play volleyball in the winter. Is that money, you have the volleyball money now, or is it soccer money?
Yeah, we wouldn't.
See, that
Individually
it's the team. It's when it's raised, it's the
As
whole
it's-
team. And because the sports budgets have been cut so much, the teams are buying more than, they're not buying just frivolous. They're buying game balls, they're buying the score
Right.
books.
Yeah, they're buying
I know.
stuff.
You know.
And I'd like us to see that stuff and own up to some of that stuff. I don't think we should fall on the backs of the kids all the time. I think we're taking away I think we're exploiting the children right now. Fundraising, I think it's too rampant. I think the board should step back up, but until we capture those costs.
Well, I can tell you, I know sports boosters, we as a board have discussed it and sat down with Goose and her plan of every varsity team and the uniforms, because uniforms are an issue. To get them all on a 4-year cycle, and Boosters is now going to designate X amount per athlete to each team. So like field hockey bottom this year, we will give them, I can't even remember what the exact amount was, X amount of dollars per every uniform, the 25 girls, if it was $10, we'll give them $250 to help with the cost of the uniform. Which $250 doesn't sound like much, but when you're ordering a uniform, that can be the difference between the cheap one that falls apart and a better quality one that they'll get for full years. Because when the varsity teams at the high school get new uniforms, those uniforms go down to the middle school, the old ones. And I can tell you the field hockey team, I don't know what the material is made out of, but it's shiny, it doesn't stain, and it's scary. So they all have a life, it all moves
Right.
down. I know girls basketball at the middle school had to use softball uniforms because there weren't enough jerseys and the uniforms were close enough. However, for basketball, none of the numbers can be over the number 5. So at a couple games, refs were saying something to the middle school basketball coaches, you have a 72 on your team. Well, we can't call a foul on 72. It's supposed to be.
Yeah. You gotta think of everything.
Exactly. So there's all sorts of nuances in
So
all
what's
of
that
this.
policy that Goss is proposing? Is that somewhere like written? Is that?
I don't think it's a policy. I think
not
it's just her
policy.
her
It's-
plan for.
And she's just kept track of who's gotten
Right.
uniforms and who's coming up due.
It's just
in
her
the
way
next
of
few years.
That's
housekeeping.
something we should incorporate into the policy then?
I don't know that you want.
Unless you're going to pay for it.
I would.
Yeah, unless you're going to manage it, have somebody that's managing it, and the communication, the communication should be through the boosters to Goose.
Facilitate, which is
Yeah.
all free.
Administration and boosters should handle
It's just kind of a cheat sheet to kind of keep track of what could be coming up the pipeline as far as what teams might be coming up and saying,
Right, but if you want to preserve what this board decides, like Mrs. Torsia just said, then we have to do those things at the board level, policy level.
and one of the things that I think if a team wanted to get a uniform and their uniform was perfectly fine, but they've been using it for 6 years, that's one thing if they want to fundraise to get a new uniform. But PIAA comes out and will say, next year, we are switching that your numbers have to be 7 inches tall and dead center on the back. Well, if your uniform doesn't have that, you're not compliant, so you have to get a new uniform. And then the teams have to fundraise because they have to get it in order to be PIAA compliant, but yet they have no control over it. And those teams are fundraising then to buy those uniforms just so they can be PIAA compliant.
Mary Beth.
Question. This is a little off the reservation, but with respect to this PIAA nitpicking on stuff like that, is that a common situation? And do we get caught in that?
But yeah, it happens when they say it. It affects every single school district, but they do give you a year or two notice.
They do give you some.
Yes.
And they're not as tough on you at the middle school level.
Right.
Obviously, they're a little bit more lenient there. But once you're starting, especially at the varsity level, more the varsity teams than maybe your JV teams. Your JV teams can even get a little bit, more. But they're very critical about safety equipment, making sure that is exactly where it needs to be.
And that should.
Right.
Mary Beth, do you have any idea, can you explain to us how the money for the sports programs, like what they get from the district, how it's distributed? Because hearing that we're not funding things that we should be funding.
Primarily, what I understand our athletic budget covers is salaries and transportation.
Okay.
And
Not equipment
And
at
like
all.
umps and reps.
right, and umps and refs. And minimally is it covering costs for equipment. I told Michelle that I wanted her to start putting things back in, like the game balls.
Yeah.
The baseball team, softball team, they go through a lot of balls. And depending on
The
where...
balls changed this year. PIAA announced
Right.
that. you had to
So
use
I
the ball.
said to her, things that we have to supply, balls, bats, helmets, any of the safety equipment, that should be that should be coming from the athletic budget. And so I know that she's been applying, but I don't know that there's that much. I'm not
What is
Connor.
our
I'm not.
athletic
I don't
budget?
know what the athletic budget
Okay.
is. I'm sorry, I wasn't
But
prepared for
I know
that
Boosters
question.
just paid for all the lacrosse paint.
Right.
To
Right,
paint
because-
the field
because they-
it's not in the school district budget, but the field lines weren't right.
Right. So they painted the
Can't
fields
play.
because as they were cutting the grass, they were always cutting away their own lines. So this way, they were painting the field so that I guess it stayed.
Permanent?
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
don't know
sure.
how
We
it
had, like,
works.
two
I would
different
think that the grass still grows, but there's something to do with it. But-
What sport is that for?
Lacrosse, but that's
Because I
not even.
thought
Oh,
in
that's
facilities.
That's on the turf. That's
on the turf.
Yeah.
That's on the turf.
But
Right.
I think they were painted wrong on
Yeah.
it. That something was wrong.
Yeah.
But, and
This-
we're talking a $500 cost. It's not a lot, but Boosters paid for.
Yeah, it was more than that, Court. And to get it permanently painted onto the field,
Well,
it was like
the-
$10,000.
The cost of what we just paid, the new paint that we just paid for was $500.
Okay.
Now,
So
whatever happened when they put the stadium in, I don't know.
well, it doesn't have lacrosse. It doesn't have lacrosse
On it?
on it.
So now
Which
it will.
Mr. Blankenbiller had mentioned it to the facilities is that this is something I want to look at going forward because it is a cost to the district because the paint they're using washes off it's not permanent.
Her budget being cut.
All
so
I know is we were
deep.
asked, and
I
we
said with
went
her
ahead and
budget
paid
being
for
cut
it.
so deep, that's
So
where
like we even
Boosters
paid
came
for
in,
track,
and they
starting
were.
blends.
Yeah, the athletic.
Which you kind of need the noise to start running. And track didn't have the money for it last year, so Sports Boosters paid for the blanks.
I feel like we're losing control. I mean, and I don't know what the liability
Well, on this, I mean, I didn't know any about
Yes.
this until we just heard about it tonight.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we need to.
We didn't even know our field was being painted.
Yeah. Well, I'm more
Yeah, we
concerned about
discussed
the
it with
I'm
equipment.
just saying, what if it was you did?
Yeah.
It should still come.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to wind up. That's going to wind up possibly up for approval. So,
But it's already done.
well, the season's over.
We did do
Regular season for most sports is done now.
Yeah. So I
Everything's in
mean,
the post.
it's one of those things that Mr. Blankenbiller mentioned that if we're going to continue to support lacrosse from that standpoint, there's a cost to the district to go in there and paint the field each time.
each game.
Right. So we would consider doing it permanent. If the permanent somebody comes in, they actually do it permanent, and then it stays there. There's a cost, but and the laundry list of things that had to get approved and get paid for. That since paying for the field to get painted when we had some other things to pay for in this year's budget wasn't the priority. So, but I mean it's a good example. I mean those kind of things like the starter cartridges and balls that should be part of the budget.
It should be.
It shouldn't end up on the backs of our children.
But it was about, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago?
When we were cutting sports completely,
Yeah.
and they
They just
annihilated
tacked it to the bare minimum.
Right.
We're just
Yeah.
crying about these obligations. And of course, there's always the sort of the inference that if you don't help, you're not going to play. You know what I mean? That's a looming threat. I'm not saying anyone's saying it.
No,
I'm just
but
saying
there's
that's
some
always-
people that feel that
I know
way
it.
or may interpret whatever somebody
and
says in that
And
manner.
that kind of flowed into some of the other, I don't know about the clubs, But I would think that flowed in the clubs. I know even for the marching band, the kids for like heads, from the drums and that kind of mouths, they have a amount that they have to pay for that as part of to join that activity. You need to fundraise for that.
So Ms. Goose is capturing all this that we need.
Well, I know that she has track of what we need, yes. I know that she knows what each team needs in order to be, compliant with PIAA.
However,
Right.
now, I can tell you, like, only because of softball, I only know softball at this exact moment. If there's something softball needs, Softball Boosters is paying for that equipment or whatever it is to get it right now. And that may not necessarily go through Boost because softball has its own money.
Right. Yeah.
They have fundraised.
Well, what I'm talking about is just the basic stuff, the blank cartridges, the game balls. I mean, stuff like that. I think we should capture all that info and just get a list together and say what are we lacking.
That's you're kind of melding into budget and finance.
And what you're going to get.
Budget and finance. I mean,
From the policy standpoint, if we get back to the policy.
You're right, Mike. Let's stay on that.
Policy needs to make a recommendation. We're going to recommend they increase the budget, the sports budget by X
Well,
amount
that's
of
not. That's
dollars.
for the finance committee to determine whether they're going to
I mean,
increase the
That
amount.
comes
we should raise the
Comes from policy.
right. We should raise the issue that
Raise the issue.
that we're
Okay,
sure
we
how,
could look at the numbers.
that you're kind of.
Finance.
We feel that there's fundraising
Yeah.
up and above what would be,
Yeah, we did
they're
that.
fundraising for things that should be. There's a better way. We feel that they're fundraising for things that should be owned by the district.
Right.
Yeah. So we
Like,
need
Probably a
to
fair
give you an
statement.
example, for softball this year, we did a budget, parents all saw it and everything. But in that budget, it included spending up to $1,000 to buy program bats so that the girls who can't afford to go buy a $300 bat have access to these better quality bats. But that's now part of the program. Like, those girls won't take those bats home. We'll have them for next year. So that's something that maybe, I don't know, is that considered a necessity? Or is that an extra that a team could say that that's what you want?
There's a big difference between some of the high performance $500 bats and the bat you can get for like $200.
When you can
And
get
there's
a
a lot of
5'0"
personal preference.
80-pound girl to hit a home run because of the bat they're using.
Yeah, I mean it's the same. I mean, then we're talking about bowling, and bowling we don't supply any money for
Right.
their balls and equipment, and a bowling ball probably is $150, $160 drilled, plus your equipment.
You
So,
can bet we're not paying the big price for the javelins that can be thrown either.
Yeah.
No, Sports Boosters just bought a new javelin, a new discus, and
Yeah, but
Something else.
I'm sure our top athlete,
we're not- we're not-
javelin thrower, has
she's-
her own.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure of that. There's
but to even the
Yeah,
playing
she's
field for
doing it.
those students, the athletes that do have the better quality, you want to make it so it's not so much the haves and the have-nots
Right.
when they're playing.
Yeah, you want to make it somewhat.
So that they at least have access to some of what everybody else has. So that's where you're going to start getting into what's a necessity, what's an extra.
Well, I'm not saying like that example of that has to be bought every year.
Exactly.
Buy
But I'm
one
just saying,
good
like,
bat.
we bought that,
I get you. Yeah, I get your point. Thank you.
So I think that's something we could recommend to the finance to take a look at this, and really it's got to be a conversation that they have with the building principal and Michelle as far as
Yeah.
pointing these things out, and the same with the clubs. I don't know what all the clubs. I think the clubs are a little bit different. They're not being regulated by the PIAA. They're not.
It's whatever, more of what the principal probably
right.
has going on, I would think.
I don't know that there's Title IX considerations with them. Certainly, not with the music side. Although I think some of the problem exists there too. The budget has been reduced. The boosters bought musical instruments for the district. Some of them are, $4,000 or $5,000. But just for like the heads, the sticks, and that kind of stuff, you would think those are consumables, just like baseballs. And but again, that's. I think we'll
moving in
have
that direction, I mean, I'd like to propose that the teams can only have 2 fundraisers a year. Only have
to be day-long fundraisers, more than one day. Policies that we've seen, I think the Mill Creek one you forwarded.
Now, when you're saying a one-day fundraiser,
Let me get the language from it.
because if you're doing an event, can you think it has to sell tickets? Is the event the one day?
Oh, yeah, and it said something like that, like with not to exceed more than 8 days. So you're selling tickets for 7 days, and then you have the event one day. Because again, the focus for the kids when they're in sport should be playing the sport. They shouldn't be fundraising. But can I get that language to you to consider?
Many of them, many of the sports are doing a camp where the coach comes in. They don't get paid. The coach doesn't get paid in any way. They're there to facilitate the camp with the student athletes, and it's usually for the younger kids. And the monies that they draw in, that's one of their one big fundraisers. And then maybe another one might be a pancake breakfast or a bingo.
Those are one-day things,
right? Those are
But a
yeah.
lot of them are done.
Distract them.
But
Right.
a lot of them are done off season
Right.
because you don't have time during
To do it,
season to
right.
do anything.
No one's I haven't seen anyone fundraising during their season. Now, if let's say the girls basketball team, for instance, they went further this year, and so they wanted to sell T-shirts to raise money. I don't know what it paid for. It was I think they must have sold them for cost, just for what they weren't. But they were trying to get student.
They just rounded it
spirit.
up.
They were trying to get team spirit behind them and rally all of the students. So and it was something like that. So things like that will come up, but a lot of times it's mom and dad that's sitting up in the stands that are getting other people to buy them. I'm
And
not seeing the kids.
The other thing with the one day, there's one of the teams, I'm not sure which one, because I don't keep track of them, Kelly does. They do the script. So if you do it one day, they wouldn't be able to do script all year
Yeah,
long.
I think the goal
So-
of that policy is so that the mother group is doing the heavy fundraising.
But
And the
we
teams
don't
are
do the heavy
restricted.
fundraising for the individual teams.
Well, I
See,
know,
they're so
but I think
they're so
that's-
fragmented. It's not like you can't put them in the same.
I think we're
Sports
trying-
Thing is
boosters and the
music.
teams, you can't
we're
treat them the
trying to
same.
get there, though. We're trying to get them, the teams, if they need more, to have to sort of apply with the mother, what they're not
But we
getting
don't
from
have
us.
that money.
But all of the fundraising would then be undone under the mother group's umbrella.
But
so
if
that it does
football
come in.
has a golf outing, their money shouldn't go to sports boosters.
They could have 2 a year, but the other ones that the mother group runs should be, everybody should participate in.
Typically-
All
They
the
do,
teams should
Right.
because the fundraisers at Sports
And then they
Boosters,
should go to you.
the only fundraiser Sports Booster participates in up until this year was the snack bars that
Right.
we do with music boosters. That's all we do. And how we run it is every team gets paid. They get to sign up for the home football games, 2 teams a night. They run the snack bar. They get paid. Their team gets quote unquote paid for running the snack bar. And then 2 adults from that team do the 50-50. They get the split. Like the 50, they get, I think 30, and Boosters gets 20%. So that's how Sports Boosters helps the individual teams. And then the money that we have after everything is said and done that we get from Joint Committee, that goes towards lacrosse paint, buying a javelin this year, the scholarship that Sports Boosters puts out at the end of the year.
But if we
That.
move more of the financial burden back to the district, which is the direction we're trying to go, could you foresee the reason to have team fundraising on steroids like that, though? Why would they need more than 1 or 2 a year if we start to address their basic needs?
It would probably depend on each team and what the needs and desires of that team is.
I can honestly say that not a lot of fundraising has been coming across my desk that's been team related, except for like this year, boys basketball team needed new uniforms, so
Yeah.
that was something that they pushed
They
for.
individually fundraise.
They did fundraise for that, but that was I don't know what their fundraisers were.
They did like the Applebee's
Right,
thing.
but I don't recall that it was like inundated. I see more of our day-to-day fundraising that's coming through is for the clubs. Like the clubs is really what is, because there's so many of them.
Even if they only have one. there's
Right.
gonna be-
And so they're all trying to do something, and many of the clubs get attached to like a charity that they might be trying to help, whether it's MS or if it's, I think they did something, definitely, Relay for Life. They always like to, a club likes to raise money for that. And since it's student-centered, my understanding when, presented to the board in the past was that as long as it was student-centered, especially at the high school, as they were raising funds for Relay for Life, that we were going to approve that. It was the other ones where I was getting individual teams all over the place that were kind of competing against each other within the district, even though they say it wasn't really competition, but it just felt like we were being hit for Relay for Life all the time. So I really limited any fundraisers that were Relay for Life that really had to be at the high school level. But I really feel like majority of our fundraisers that are coming across, through my office are really club related, whether it's DB, the YEA, whether it's
Key Club is a big one.
Key Club is a big one.
I did correlate all these in here.
Yeah.
But I'll advocate for why it's a good reason, because I know at least on the music side we had talked about like the length and the duration of a fundraiser, because if you compress it, you also compress some of the kids, they really need the money for whatever it is. They really need that money in their account to pay for offset a class trip if they're going on or what have you. If you compress the time frame that they have to sell like Wawa tickets, one of the things that boosters sell. If you compress it into like 7 days, well, a lot of these students work and they're not able to do anything two nights. So now they're really down to 5 days, and then they have homework, and maybe that's another 2 days, and they have to go out there and like really bust it to try and sell as much as they can.
Giving them what they need from the district? Why do working families have to fundraise?
Well, I think if more money was flowing into all these different things, that they wouldn't have to.
Or are they trying to do too much?
Well, I can't answer that. It depends on what the.
I don't think we do nearly as much as the schools around us.
No.
As far as what students go and do.
I'm saying 2 fundraisers for all these groups per year, limiting everybody to 2. Then why wouldn't that work? Why would? Basically, I think you're saying it's perpetual fundraising on these. They just go from one to the next and the next and the next.
And if you're an active student,
proposing we stop that.
Some of the things
stop
that
activities for the kid. Then you've just eliminated a whole bunch of
Fundraising is
opportunities.
not an activity.
But
I don't
the
consider
fundraising
fundraising
provides
an
opportunities for the
Does
kids
it or
to
doesn't
do.
it, is all I'm suggesting. It does it or is it, the organizer that wants to do these things? Do the kids, I guess we need to see, what are they all doing?
Well, again, then you have to go back to when you fill the sheet out. What's the purpose of the fundraiser?
Right.
How is the money going to be spent? And I guess I approach it as we pay the administrators to look out for the well-being of the students. If it becomes overburdensome and they're not following policy by exceeding the limits of what they're supposed to be fundraising for, then they should be the gatekeepers for that.
But I look at like music. I think they're Europe, like if they follow what they've done in the past, the Europe trip should be in 2 years. And I look forward to that because that's my daughter's opportunity to go to Europe with her classmates. I probably can't fit a trip to Europe in myself, in this time frame. But because Music Boosters exist, she can do fundraisers to help offset that cost. I know it's coming up, so I can participate in as few or as many Music Booster fundraisers as I want to help offset the cost of something that I know is probably coming up in the next 2 years.
See, it's a little bit different from the music side because although you have one account, each student has their own account, they could raise money when marching band season's going on, but not use any of that money. And then the choir, they could be going into the choir season and then decide that money they raised back in marching band, they apply to the choir.
Right.
To offset
you
that
have that
share.
whole,
So it's a little bit different.
So are all the Music Boosters, everything in these? This is all they had all year?
That's everything from August to March on our agendas.
Yeah, and I can't tell you that I saw anything Nothing sports related really jumps out at me that has come across my desk lately. It's
Well, it's like
really,
music though. There's only it doesn't break down. You said there's 4 different sub accounts under Music Boosters.
Well,
seeing compliance.
right, the choir, here's 2 for the choir, and the rest are all by the, what you would call the umbrella music boosters.
The mother organization.
Yeah, the mother
The
organization.
mothership.
So,
But again,
so
that
would be in
structure,
compliant with the policy I'm proposing.
but it's different because from the sports side, they're, and it's not a
No, it's
disparaging. It's just fractured, okay? Because everybody wants to, they have their own money and they want to control their own money. So,
It sounds like music is too controlling their own.
well, they are
individual
they're
basis.
controlling the money, but they don't have like a choir booster. They don't have instrument,
band booster.
their marching band booster.
Color guard booster. They don't
Right.
have individual ones like the sports does.
But yet they're functioning the same way.
They're functioning the same way.
Everybody's doing the
And
same
they're all
thing. It's just
doing.
the language itself.
They're all doing like their own.
And what works best for their organization.
Yeah.
And there's things on here. There's things that I know, like the music boosters do. They have a car wash, maybe 3 car washes over the summer, that are not even on here because they happen between over July, and the students they volunteer for a 4-hour shift or a 3-hour shift, I should say, and they just wash cars for those 3 hours. And another group
Well,
comes
that's
in.
off-site, so we don't even get those, I heard.
Right.
We don't get off-site approvals for...
No.
So this car wash is on-site, though?
No. This is Ace Hardware.
Yeah, I don't know of
supplies
any
the hoses and all the
Because at
stuff.
the last meeting, we heard that we don't have to approve off-site.
No, but what I'm saying is there's fundraisers that are happening that are not on this
I
list.
place,
I
yeah.
think what they were saying was
There's a couple
that
hundred more not.
But they're not being forced to sell anything. They're just coming, for 3 hours you're going to come wash cars.
I think when it's not involving any student, like the one in question,
Blazer Tap.
right,
The village,
right. That didn't go through the hands of the kids at all. That was all adult race.
Yes, there was nothing sent
that
through the schools,
and there was
nothing.
it wasn't
all
given
done
to
So
through
the kid
social
ones
media.
are supposed to go through. it.
right.
But
Yeah.
sports boosters, that tap
I don't
takeover
think
had
so.
nothing, not a
Yeah.
single person under the age of 21 had anything to do with it.
But it's our good name.
Well, if you read the sign and you saw the Boone Fest, you might have thought that was our good name
Yeah.
too. And that wasn't that.
Beer
Had,
Fest.
it was
You
the
mean
Boone
the
Beer
Boone
Fest.
Fest?
It was
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, the Boone Beer Fest, that's what it says.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Well, it could have been the Boone Liquor Fest. Could be worse.
I don't know. We need more information, I think, don't you?
Do you have any? I'm sorry. What's your name?
Rich.
Rich. Do you have anything? You kind of quiet back there. I know Laura. And we're all talking here, so don't feel
I've been
left
coming
out.
for too many years.
Listening.
Okay.
I guess, I'm
Well, where do we want to go with this? What's the recommendation?
I'm reluctant to do anything that restricts the activities or the autonomy. If it's working for the kids, I'm hesitant to change it. The only thing I would like to see is more transparency. How much money are we talking about? Going back to we got off the reservation a little bit about what do the teams need as far as just to get on the field or on the track, basketballs, that kind of thing.
Well, I think we're going to have that opportunity come August because that's when the groups have to submit their budgets.
Okay, well, good.
And when you're looking at what they're buying, that should immediately
That should be
spur the
triggered.
question of, all right, why are they buying
Balls.
X?
Right.
Balls,
Yeah.
a javelin, you whatever the situation may be. But again, it's a
We can ask questions, but we don't have to say anything.
we just want to know what their budget is.
Right.
That's what's important for the board to know.
Right.
So that way the administration can see what everyone's spending, make sure,
And I
the
know
money-
Title IX is a big issue, but once you see the cheerleading budget, there is no Title IX issue.
yeah.
Cheerleading is crazy, and we are not the only school that it's crazy. I mean, the whole state is crazy. There is no Title IX issue once you throw in cheerleading.
So we're good there.
We're good. I mean, every boys team could buy whatever they wanted, and cheerleading will still offset it.
Well, that sounds like a Title IX violation there.
No, because it's going towards the
If the girls are
female.
getting more than.
No, the girls can have unlimited.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting.
It's crazy. I mean, and the parents are footing all of that bill.
Well,
Yeah, Mr. Rathgeb has
Every
always
single
that
Yeah, Mr.
argument.
Rathgeb is your
Every
resident.
single one of those bows in there.
Yeah, but to give you an idea, like softball, only because I know it. Last year, I'm going to say we spent about $5,000 each season supplying whatever it was, providing for the girls, postseason food, the tournament that we do, so that to give you an idea of the softball philosophy is we do all the fundraising. So during season, the girls aren't saying, "Oh, Mom, Dad, I need $20 because we have to do X, Y, Z."
And that's smart.
We do all of it so that come tomorrow, if they need Subway sandwiches, the boosters pay for it. So when they're going to counties, the parents don't have to worry about it.
the boosters pay for it?
Yes. We pay for postseason food.
Same as the baseball team will get box lunches if they have postseason, and
Yeah.
same as our wrestler. Like
Yeah.
anybody that.
When the
Those
band
booster teams do it.
when the band traveled to MetLife for their big competition, the band trailer went packed with food that all the booster parents donated, and they bought, but they donated time to prepare it and all that, and we lay it out for the kids. So. Well,
The
how
only
about,
thing it doesn't pay for is the part of the budget that is the school's responsibility is the extra pay that each coach gets as the season gets extended, because they do. So that does come out of
That comes out of our budget.
correct, and the transportation. So your transportation now has been extended.
And
But
the rest
Michelle,
of the empire.
right? But Michelle usually knows kind of what teams will most likely be moving on. So then she makes sure that the monies are there, knowing that she's going to carry them into extended season. So that is all covered. And but if we run out of baseballs, because you have to have like a brand new ball almost every time. Once it hits the dirt, I guess it goes into the ump's pocket, and then a new one comes out. And
that's professional.
Well, I don't know. They probably use them a little bit more, but
that's in the pros. Yeah,
Instead of at the next game as a new ball.
make sure they don't have a file in their pocket.
right. But yeah, if they get too scuffed
But
up,
you'll
then
get a
they're
good
changing
idea
them
from
over.
this fall.
Yeah.
When you get
So-
the individual team budgets.
I think I would like to, I'll mention it. I'll speak with Mr. Basil about it for the budget side, and when the budgets are submitted and they have a chance to look at it, I think we can bring it up again, because it's kind of late, obviously, with the budget, being next month.
Yeah.
We really
Maybe
can't do
we
much.
should. You're suggesting we put it off, changing the policy off.
Not put it on. Just table it for.
Table it for now.
Table it for. Just to set aside, not forget about it, but
Right.
maybe in September I'll put it on the put it back on the agenda
As the-
to review, and
Yeah,
and then we'll
that's a good idea.
see what's fair as far as, all right, here's what they're submitting. These are the items that maybe the district should be picking up, and then all right, if you see I'm just going to pick lacrosse. Maybe they fundraised to try and get $5,000, but the $5,000 paid for all new sticks. $4,000 of the $5,000 went to pay for sticks. Well, the $1,000, is that really
There-
burdensome? Can they do it with maybe 1 or 2 fundraisers instead of 4?
But they're a club sport
I'm
completely,
sorry.
and
I
we
just-
don't support. Yeah,
All right.
and that's okay.
Bad example.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Soccer, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Soccer vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's wait till the cycle starts and some
Field
information
hockey.
starts coming in from the.
Yes, this is all new. We
Policy
kind of changed the rules over the last 2 years, and this will be the first
Yeah.
time through it.
And then you have
I'm
those
okay
things
with that.
like football. The district provides the helmet, the pads.
Well, they
all that
have
protective
to.
gear. But in the field hockey world, each individual girl has their own goggles,
Yeah.
their own stick.
Mouthpiece.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't went into it. Yeah. And shin guards.
I would hope to have their own mouthpiece.
They have to provide their own protective gear.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of those sports. So,
I mean, if you want to, I can work in
We used to. They used to
an
be
informal, like
provided.
a focus group and work with Mrs. Reno privately, and try to get some more information gathered for the board.
And I think
what
that
they think, what's happening. Number one, I can present a report. She has a lot of information here.
I think from the administration side, just make sure the way it comes through in a Word document each month. It only took me about half hour, and I'm terrible with Word, to sort through this and kind of correlate it. As long as we do that to monitor the requests for each team or each activity, I should say, is putting forth, to just make sure it adheres to the policy.
And Mrs. Bishop, every one of these has one of these sheets?
Yes, every single one, yes.
I know I filled one out before, so.
If they don't, then they're not submitting for a fundraiser, and then I have no
How are we
idea.
trapping if people are running fundraisers and not getting approved?
It would just have,
That. Should we issue a ticket so that shows they're allowed to have a fundraiser?
I don't
Then
think
who's
so.
in charge of holding on to that ticket during, like,
And
who's
it's
going
not-
to police
I don't know,
it?
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like,
I'm just
random,
thinking.
so that they can randomly, anybody.
I think for the
can
most part,
randomly ask
everybody
for permission.
does do it. I don't know that we've
Well,
ever
I found
caught.
one not on here, though. I'll talk to you privately.
Okay. Well, and maybe it's not
I know
on there,
have
but maybe
been.
there's.
Actually, I know 3.
Well, actually, really, you should. It's a public meeting. You should.
I don't want to. Okay, there were bracelets sold at the kids come from the other schools during the day. What's that called? The Cat in the Hat guy? The Dr. Seuss.
Seussical.
They were selling bracelets. And they said, they also announced that half the proceeds went to support the child whose picture was dropped down and a related loan. But what we were told was, I didn't see either of them on there, and what I was told going into it, that all the money collected from the Dr. Seuss
Was that just like
goes back into
was that like
Dr. Seuss.
merchandise they just sold there?
They said there was merchandise sold, a bracelet, and there was all kinds of merchandise.
Because that's not really a fundraiser.
No?
Yeah.
What is that?
And
I mean,
every year they pick somebody that they do give proceeds to.
But it wasn't approved.
But it
Where's
may,
the approval?
it could have been something that's assumed that you already know that because that's
Yeah,
the way
well,
it is every year.
it's the same as
That's what I'm
sports.
saying. How
The
much is
sports
something
side,
for
they may sell like shirts or hats. I mean, the music side, they sell sweatshirts and stuff for the
You
fall.
can't say every fundraiser is approved.
That's
If
not-
they're
yeah,
not
that's,
on here, if they're not on
Well, I
here.
think
Could
the
be
answer to that
thousands,
question
no.
lies on the form for the Seussical. How will the money raised in Drive be spent?
Well,
So it
what
should
she's saying
say-
is they didn't, since it's not on this list, they never filled out one of those forms.
Well, they submitted the one for Seussical,
But they
right?
could have, and it just maybe the wording on that half the proceeds were going to here and here didn't end up on your.
Yeah, but I don't think from the sports side and the merchandise you guys sell, like the clothing that we all get from.
But we do that at
not
homecoming.
approved.
We don't sell any clothing anymore. We just do the homecoming T-shirts, and I think that we had a
With
thing
the
on that.
GSA selling tickets, selling,
But that's not. No one's being forced
and
to
they
buy
have
those.
to-
The kids aren't. The kids aren't selling
No.
them. So it's the
It's all
boosters
adults,
themselves.
yeah.
Okay.
why would some people have to get their fundraisers approved and not others?
If
It's-
kids are doing the selling versus adults.
It's not for the music side when they sell these shirts. I think they buy them in bulk, and then over a course of 3 years, they just have a table set up at the football game. And if you want to buy a blanket, you can buy a blanket. If you want to sell a shirt, it's not a
It's
just spirit wear, I guess you could call it, but it's not really a fundraiser per se.
But the incident you're talking about happened.
Well, what I'm asking, want to know is if it was something like that where they had a table there and people walking out from the Seussical, whatever. I haven't been to one, so I don't know. Had an opportunity to buy one of these
Well, was
bracelets.
this during Mrs. Bites? Do you know, like, were they walking through the aisles selling these things, or how was it?
In the back of the,
So it was like at a table outside. Okay.
So we need to know about stuff like that. That needs to
I'm checking.
as I'm saying,
I don't-
that's just.
I don't
be-
know.
I'm sure there's
There's one, there could be
you know,
dozens.
closet full of those.
So here's a bunch of people who are honest and submit their.
But I don't think it's that they're trying to be devious.
No, I don't either.
I think it's that
board needs to
they're
know
just,
about it.
hey,
The
we're doing the
administration.
suits. They every year they honor some child. I think last year it was a child of a former teacher that was ill. So, but I didn't go this year, so I don't know.
Well, you need to go and let us know.
I only have so many days, just like
So
you
what I
guys.
was
I know.
told was that the proceeds from Seussical, which, know, I don't know why you're charging admission at all. Then you're charging admission, it's supposed to go back to the program, and then you go to the program and you find out that your admission went to something that had nothing to do with the kids.
But here's the thing, for Seussical, they don't charge during the day, they charge at night. Are they also being charged for a custodian being there at night? So then they would have to charge in order to be able to pay the custodian.
What they said was the
point.
fee was for
Good point.
Relay for Life and for the child.
But I'm just saying your point of they shouldn't charge at all, but if they're being charged to use the auditorium and have to pay for a custodian to be there,
More reason for us to-
Well, then that makes sense. Then it's going to the program. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to charge admission and it has, it's needed for one thing.
and I think it also goes to help offset some of the costs.
But you're told one thing and then you're told you're giving it to them because they're supposed to put it back in the program, but they're actually giving the money away.
So we just need to make sure that we know where the proceeds are going.
Right.
That's just the
And
bottom
how do we
line.
capture every fundraiser? Because they're not being approved. They're not coming through the approval process. I just gave you an example.
Right.
Well, we just
Okay.
need more
I mean,
sponsors.
that's something, again, the administration has to make sure that,
Yeah.
you know, that if they're using the building, they should be a building use form. Because otherwise, how they getting in the building? And if it is, sorry, why you being in the building? It's for this, then it should have. If it's a fundraiser, it should have this form.
I agree.
I do want to speak while we're looking at the fundraising and spirit activities policy. Fundraising during the school day itself. I know when I was in school, for example, I participated in this junior class. We sold Gertrude Hawk chocolate bars throughout the school day. And like in class, if a kid wanted a chocolate bar, they'd come up to me and say, hey, can I buy a chocolate bar? And then I'd sell it to them in class. And in retrospect, I don't think that's the best way to do these things. And there's a time where kids need to be focused on learning. And then there's other times where maybe they can do
So
stuff
they hit them
like
in the
this.
hall, hit you in the hallway.
Maybe
that's
that's
one thing.
better, yeah, but not in the classroom. And I don't know how we can make sure that isn't happening. I guess that's on the staff to make sure that those things don't happen. I'm not sure if it's specifically prohibited in
I
policy.
mean, the thing is, that's in here about fundraising. I mean, during class time.
Yeah.
So it's really the teacher or the administrator making sure that they're following the
So
rules.
just goes
Yeah,
back to
it's
that
at the
front line.
teacher level and the building principal level, make sure that doesn't go on.
Okay.
This is good.
And-
One more out and it's over.
What's that?
One more out and it's over. They're up 10-5.
It's like Sports Center here.
It is.
Okay.
Hey, it's good for them. They haven't been in counties in ages.
All right. So, Mrs. Bites, so you're
I'm
comfortable?
good for now, yeah.
Okay, so we are going to review this again in the September timeframe. I talked to Mr. Basil about the, what we feel is excess fundraising to make up for the fact that there's a lack of funding for the different programs.
Study on the budget. I guess we're asking them to do a study on the Mrs. Goss's budget. And Mrs. Patricia, we'd like you to try to make sure all the fundraisers are approved.
Well, and I checked with Sandy, and she said that she does have some for the Seussical DBYEA, so they may, I don't know why they weren't a part of whatever. Or, yeah,
I
that's,
saw DBYEA. What's DBYEA?
it's the, Connor, what's
It's the
the
biggest
yeah,
group
Daniel
there.
Boone,
Youth Education Association. That's who runs Seussical. That's the club.
I saw them selling.
Yeah, I
Well,
was
it's in
looking-
the
Does it
back
say they're
here.
selling bracelets? So maybe
It's
it was.
it's all the way. It's in the miscellaneous, the last
Oh,
page.
there it is. Yep, there it is. They did.
The
to sell
Cell
rubber
Blood Drive
bracelets.
T-shirts and the Cell Rubber bracelets.
Okay, so that's what you were saying. They just have blanket permission to always sell them. So they just were set up at Seussical.
Right.
So
Well,
my
and that's
snapshot
but
is just a snapshot.
DBYEA is Seussical. They're the one. They're all the kids that are part of DBYEA are part of the Seussical production. So that's why you didn't see it. So so yes.
What else does DBYEA do?
They do the blood drive. That's their biggest thing. And I think Seussical. I think it's those. There could be a couple others, but I don't. I asked Sandy to get me some.
No, I mean, that's fine.
So when they do their approvals, it shouldn't say just sell rubber bracelets. They should put rubber bracelets all year long.
Well, Sandy
Such and
probably
such
just-
events. It should all be on that form.
Well, it is on the form, but it's probably just
not on ours.
consolidated a little bit to fit it to a one.
Yeah, because it says October 27th to May 31st.
They won.
That's all.
Yeah, good.
And the form would say exactly what the events they plan to hit. I mean, if we're going to manage it, we should know
Well,
exactly when they're.
DBYEA is selling the bracelets, and DBYEA puts on the Stussicle.
And that's all?
Pretty
So
much.
that's all? So why
So
would
they're
it
probably
be
selling
such a
them-
big timeframe then?
Because they're probably selling them all year to any student who wants to buy them.
And I guess that's what my question, what's the mechanism? Where are they selling them? So
I don't know.
Lunch? Office?
Yeah, I
After school?
haven't
As long
seen
as
it
you're
yet.
capturing it on the forms and you're giving permission for it.
I would have to say, without looking at the form, I don't know.
And how much of it is just at meetings? Hey, I wanted to pick up a bracelet, and we're having our DBYEA meeting. You know, it may not be a sell
Yeah, might not be a problem.
versus it's just available.
So let's make sure we're tracking good information on the fundraising for now so that we can make a decision.
Okay. Thanks, Mrs. Reno. You can stay if you like. We're going to...
I'll stay till Megan Weber
Okay.
comes. I need to talk to her for a
Rich, you have any questions or any? No? Okay.
Thanks very much for all that you do.
Oh, no problem. It's
Well, it's like you said a minute ago, there's only enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
You know what, I think what your group does is really good. Really.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for being
And,
here.
and it's not an easy job.
Great.
No?
Moving right along.
Okay.
Use of school facilities. Good segue.
yeah, right.
I think last time we spoke about coming up with a living list,
Which
and
I gave
how
to
these,
everybody.
right, and how these groups would would fall into.
Right. So, the athletic facilitator's office has captured a running list of the facilities that are used because that's where the form initially begins. And past practice was that anyone that was an organization that had our students in the Daniel Boone Area School District students that were participating in that, group, like the youth, the youth leagues, that they were given the opportunity to use our facilities at no charge. Discussion has been created throughout the year by the board. Should we be letting everybody, regardless that there are students or not, coming in without any kind of a fee? So that's what we need to really determine. And if so, what should the rate be? And do they get to? Do they have to have a custodial fee attached if they're maintaining all of the upkeep and they don't, require that? I think some of the organizations that do come in are probably messier than others, the basketball, the little kid basketball teams, and I'm not picking on Blazer mats, but I know that they were around, being a principal of one of the buildings, I used to have, some aftermath from, when the kids would be in. So, this is really where we want to, begin the discussion as far as who do we want to identify. And I think that we talked about it a little bit at our last meeting, looking at the guidelines and saying, are we comfortable with the way that we have the fee structure, as far as Category 1, Category 2, Category 3. So, kind of where we're segueing in.
If there's no...
NC means no charge.
Yeah, but if there's nothing in...
Then we're charging, and I don't know that she necessarily knows what the charge was because she didn't initiate the charge. She just initiated the form going around and making sure that the facility was available.
So if it's blanket, there is some kind of
Right.
charge.
And Michelle may have old charges. I didn't request those at the time. I just wanted to know if they were a school or if they were an outside organization. So, for instance, when you look at the first page and you see BMC registration, I don't know what that is. Obviously, it's an outside organization.
Blazer Mat Club.
Oh, okay, is that what it is? There you go. They're just using the cafeteria to sign up, and then they go and leave. So it's not. It wouldn't be anything that we would necessarily need a custodial fee for. But that's, again, for you to decide. Like Gratz College, when we have, when we work with this college, they do obviously pay a fee. I would have to get that.
So the teachers union doesn't pay a fee to use the library?
No, that's part of their collective bargaining agreement that it is in there, yeah, that they do have the same opportunity to use an internal facility use because they're our
the
people.
same opportunity, I mean, that would apply to the category structure. I don't know. I think that's a conversation for a different time and place.
Yes.
Berks County Election Services?
I don't know what
Is it-
they do, but
That's where they have the polling place. right?
they have the high
that's-
school
yeah.
annex, right? Wow, that's
yeah,
right.
in the annex, that's right.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Are
Okay,
they
so
charged?
did that College Planning Center, do they charge or not?
Yes, the grads.
How much do they?
I don't know. I don't. I'm sure that we do know. I just don't. I did not know for this information that I had gotten from Michelle. Since we just had a meeting last week,
Okay.
I took information that she already had compiled for me and figured that would be the easiest way to get out to you who's been using the facility.
So you're going to fill this stuff in later?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, we can certainly get that information. I'm sure that they would probably charge the category 3 because they would be outside and they'd be for profit. Yeah.
Okay, so the goal is really to have a laundry list of all these organizations, historically what they used, if we charge them or not, and then have a recommendation over here as far as the category that for historical,
right.
so we would know.
And if you look at it, each page is per building. It's not. It's to show you who's using which building.
It's good.
So yes, what I would say is, how do you want to, what category we want to put, like for instance, AIC 5th grade course, that's our kids from 5th grade that are having their choral concert, and Michelle keeps track of because you have to reserve your facility so that she's not renting it out to the basketball team or somebody else. So obviously we wouldn't charge them. The volleyball club is the high school is a group of teachers at Amity Elementary Center that get together on a Thursday afternoon and they use the gym to play volleyball. And it's
teachers or students?
Teachers. The teachers are not with students. They're just
just teachers.
Yep, it's just teachers, the
Adults.
administrator. Yep.
Okay.
Yes. So they're just using it as recreational, but they reserve it and say, we'd like to use it. Now, obviously, if it's a conflict with somebody that, needed to use that facility and we'd get money for it, then we'd have to give them the boot.
So wait, the organization is called AIC Volleyball
Yeah,
Club.
that's what they
It's
call them.
adults?
Yeah.
It's not AIC students.
No, right.
Okay.
It's not really a club. They're just calling themselves a group that like to play volleyball on a Thursday, and it's open to the entire district. Hey, let's get together, play
Okay.
volleyball.
And they're not. I have a problem with that, seeing as these are adults who are earning a salary from the school district. If they wanted to use a gym at a private enterprise, they'd have to pay. So why can they use the school district facilities that are paid for by tax dollars? I mean, you can
I can't answer that question.
Like they should be charged, as far as I'm concerned. If it were students, it would be different.
Parents got together, they would.
AIC Volleyball Club, which is apparently all teachers.
So everything this is historical.
Yeah.
The charge is historical. Then I guess in addition to that, if I would create a cell in here to say what category that they were charged, so we would know.
Right.
And now we can have the discussion on. I think that the discussion also would be the use of facilities form of. All right, does AIC Volleyball Club, should that really be no charge? We can have that discussion. But once, the point is once we have that discussion and we made a decision, all right, year after year, that should be something that's consistent.
Yes.
So we're not, so the group they can plan ahead on what they're, what they're going to have to fundraise for, save for.
I'm not saying it has to be extravagant, but if I, as a member of the community, wanted to go into the high school, I'd have to pay.
I think the only thing that could augment this is just the fact of exactly what Mrs. Torsia put together with the addition of what category that they were charged, so we know that way.
What does
it's
that group consider?
right because Mrs. Torsia's leaving the district. I mean, her replacement's going to come in, and that they know. All right, this is what we've done in the past, so it's not a question. We're not. giving one answer to the group one year and then a different answer to the group the other year, unless something changes. Just so we have some consistency.
And every time a group first completes the facility use form, it should be categorized at that level.
I think so.
Maybe recommended
Unless
by
there's
facilities coordinator.
And they are- they-
approved by the building principal. And like that form should have three check marks on it for approving. 1, 2, or 3. What group are they? You know what I mean? And all three of them should sign off, or at least the third level should sign off.
Typically what happens is when they come in and they,
And that's it. That's codified. That's it.
Right.
Until that group makes an appeal.
I think so.
Otherwise-
I just want to have
Yeah.
consistency,
That's-
transparency, and that way the group or organization know exactly what's expected, and they don't have to wonder each year what their classification is
right.
going to be.
And if there are flat rates that you want to charge, the youth groups, they are understand it, and there are fees that they feel like they could support. Like they wouldn't be able to pay the
Maybe
15.
a fourth category.
Well-
a tiny little maintenance fee, like a $50 fee, like you're saying, for laser youth football is a little bit messier than.
Well, Category 2 is a minimum for the elementary gymnasium. Is that minimum $50, maximum
Right,
$250?
that's what you might want to do, because if they were charged $250 every single time.
So Category 3, we could
they
just
wouldn't
simply
be able
make
to support
up
that.
to $1,500.
Right.
Right.
And
That gives us
of course, I didn't bring that folder with me, but there were, I do have suggested prices that these youth groups feel like they could
So it's not-
comfortably pay without them not being
Yeah, that's
able to
good.
use
So
the
it's not a hard
facility.
and fast.
Because it would be a hardship in some cases.
Yeah, and I think it's a recommendation that the administration should make, and it's up for board to discuss it, debate it, and come up with an answer, and then that's it. Just like we did with the Taekwondo group.
Yeah.
Okay, that seems reasonable. So,
Okay.
so we're going to add a column in here for our historical information, is what group,
Yep.
what classification they fell into, or the charge. Maybe just the charge would
Yep.
be, because the charge will actually be more useful than the category.
And then the recommendation
So-
from the admin for what the fee structure should be for like our youth groups.
Now, do we want to change this administrative guideline to include the symbol up to 1,500 or up to, so that leaves wiggle room for the board?
I would.
Who's the one who determines what the amount is? Is it the administration, and then
Should
they
be
come
a-
to the board?
I
And
think
we
you-
adjust it?
I think it's a recommendation the administration makes, and then we either agree with it or
It
disagree
comes
with
up
it.
for our final approval as a flag. That they should
'Cause
make this decision at the.
Really, there's no reason why we can't go back. It comes up for, say, $1,500. Well, that's too much, right? Well, maybe they're willing to spend $500. They come to us and say $500. Like, oh no, $500 is too cheap. What about $1,000?
Right.
And you try to negotiate
Right.
with them. There's nothing to preclude us.
Right,
from doing
and I
that.
know that $1,000 was around the ballpark figure that many of these said that they could. I think it was like $1,000 to $1,500 because I asked Michelle to find out what their
fee chart for what you're already
Right.
doing.
'Cause they
maintain course and speed. And as we get the approvals and flags go
Right.
up, we can ask questions. And if people want to negotiate on that because they know they have a mechanism to come to us, or is that a good plan?
Yeah, I think so.
Basically, we're not micromanaging it. We're just getting them to codify what they're doing.
Right.
And then we oversee.
Yeah, and with that Taekwondo group, Mr. Small was negotiating with the person before he even made the recommendation to us. So
I think they know
I
what's proper.
Well, because my thought, to negotiate with the board, we only meet every 2.5 weeks. That would be a pretty slow negotiation
Right.
process.
And do we
Yeah, we
want that fee that's being charged then to cover whatever custodial costs would be, or do you want to charge that fee and then a custodial fee on top of it? So that's the other question, because
That would be you.
Okay.
I would think that you guys should make that recommendation right at the point of approval.
If you get past knowledge of somebody who's really.
Because right now, a good case in point is this Taekwondo group. They're going to have access to the building, okay? Now, they have said that they're going to keep, ride herd on the kids and keep them within the, the bathrooms here and the auditorium, the gymnasium. Now, if we find over the course of a couple sessions that we have garbage or, wrappers or, water bottles thrown down the hall, well, now it's a different discussion. First, you want to bring up, to them, number one, there's a problem. How do we solve it? If it continues, well, then maybe that will necessitate having a
additional fee.
And the problem is that right now River Rock maintains all of those areas, so the bathrooms are cleaned by the River Rock students because these are the facilities that they use. That there's not a custodial fee that. We're not cleaning them. That's not no one from the.
Yeah, I was using it as an example.
Right. No, and I'm just saying, that would be a perfect reason why, because you wouldn't want more cleaning to fall on River Rock.
Can we amend a facility approval form? Like, are we contracted?
We can discontinue.
At any time, is it the form?
We can discontinue their access to the building
at any
anytime we want.
It's not like a contract.
No.
And
So
I
we can go back.
I
Okay.
can tell you that
That's-
back when my kids were playing in the schools at night, there were many emails that I had gotten, not many, but attention parents. Kids are being found in areas they're not supposed to be in. We will lose access to the gym.
Okay.
Make sure, So
There is that
if
club.
powers that be find out from the school, they do communicate that out to their organization.
Yeah, the rule for us was always make sure you leave whatever area you're in cleaner than when you found it, and it won't be a problem.
So if River Rock's giving us feedback that there's, toilet paper, rolls of toilet paper in the
Right.
commode, the kids are playing around,
Right.
and we would use our enforcement power. in that.
Right.
Okay. I'm not sure we want to continue on anymore at this
Well,
point.
I have something else on this.
I'm sorry,
quickly.
Connor, go ahead.
Mary Beth said a question that we had to address was whether or not these outside organizations that have Downey Blue students involved, whether they should be assessed a fee or not. Is that the essence of your question?
It was part of it, but we kind of agreed that that if they are using our facilities on a regular basis, and in some way there's wear and tear on the facility, or just using it, heating it, cooling it, lighting
whether
it,
they use it or not.
right?
Not whether
That
it's
we
wear and
should
tear.
probably at least tag them with a fee, like Mr. Wolf was saying, up to a certain amount, so that it doesn't.
So I just want to make sure the consensus now
Right.
is, so even Amity AC basketball, that's not an in-district thing, so they could be charged.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what we're saying.
I
That
just wanna make sure.
they wouldn't be able to go anywhere else and use a gym, however many times a year that they're using it for that fee structure, up to $1,500.
Good question.
Okay, thank you.
But they wouldn't be able to pay $500 every single time they used it, because then they wouldn't.
So you're going to come back with recommendations on what?
Yep.
All right. If there's nothing else? Okay. I hate to ask this question. If we were to try and squeeze in another meeting this month, if I can get my phone to unlock. Okay, let me see. We have a meeting the 18th, negotiation to the 19th. What about the 20th?
I'm good the 20th.
It's a Wednesday.
It's next week.
2 weeks. I'm sorry, yes, next week. Next week. If not, we can.
I got something that night. What about Thursday?
I can do Thursday.
I have the Rotary scholarship on the 21st.
Okay.
It's a tough time.
We have negotiations on the 27th. What about the 26th or 28th?
Both of those work for me.
I can't the 26th. The 28th I could.
Okay. You could on the 28th?
I think so. Yes. The 28th.
Carol, how 28th is okay with you? Rich? 28th? All right, 28th it is sold. At 6 p.m.
That was
here.
too easy, Mr. Wolf.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I know we're trying to squeeze a couple of these in here so we can get things moving, but I do appreciate that. So, with that, we will end the meeting at 7:22.